another thing I just want to touch on too, because we've sort of discussed this and maybe haven't come to a conclusion, maybe can't come to a conclusion. But I see this as part of the two cradle theory, and you're probably going to have a difference in this of Sheikh Anta Diop in terms of the whole geographic climatic, meaning climate, so to speak, not climatic, but climate environment between, shall we say, the birth of Europeans and the original, birth of African people. Because if you look at our way of life and our religions, our way of life is natural. We really reverence nature. We try to understand nature. We try to live naturally. And our religions are nature religions. And you go all the way back again to Kemet, the symbolism, I think you mentioned it, of the pregnant hippopotamus, meaning, as a concept of conception, which is fabulous. And, or the crocodile as a concept of destruction, or, or the snake, in terms of the different things that you associate with the snake, or with Anubis, the animal that digests all of these things, and a symbol of transformation. So it's an enormous, deep study of nature and the functions of nature, which is nature neteru, as you know, and is also present in the Dogon and all of these other the natural forces, the divine forces that manifest in nature. So that this is understood by virtue of the milieu and investigating the milieu and coming to an understanding of the functionality of each of these things. This plant will give you this, that's edible, that's not edible, this is for medicine, etc., etc. I don't think you had that in terms of the birth of the European coming out of the Ice Age, where when you look outside, everything is frozen, there's snow all around you. Mother Nature is a bitch, if I can use that word, is not a very nice lady. And then, you have to go out into that weather and get some food. There are no trees, there are no plants, there are animals. So you have to go out there and kill. So you're isolated. You're cold, and you got to go out there and kill something to eat. I think that does something to you, as opposed to, the lushness of our Garden of Eden, which we were never thrown out of. And you can follow that down the road in terms of culture and manifestation. I'm sorry, go ahead, Robin.
No, well said, sir. But here's the issue.
Yeah.
It is possible that us as scholars and historians and teachers are going to have to radically rework the Two Cradle Theorem. For real. And I'm going to explain why. Here's the problem. When Professor Sheikh Anta Diop wrote that, the evidence seemed to suggest that Europeans have been around in their present form for about 22,000 years. When Dr. Finch wrote his superb Echoes of the Old Darkland, he was of the opinion that Europeans have been around for more than 34,000 years. The new theory is they haven't been around that long. In other words, it's possible that the Ice Age came and went, and there were still no people on the planet Earth of European heritage. Greetings. My name is Robin Walker. I'm also known as the Black History Man. I am perhaps best known for my 2006 book, When We Ruled. Based on this book, I'm launching a new online history course aimed at you, the adults. You could be a parent, you could be a teacher, a mechanic, cleaner, professionals, care workers, security guards, taxi drivers, kitchen workers, entrepreneurs, tech heads, lawyers, all of you. We want people from all over the world to be empowered by our content. We want you to gain mastery over your history and heritage. And you can do this by subscribing to our course. Click on the link
to get this powerful, life-changing material.
So the new theories that people are advancing now is Europeans have been around. The longest possible time is probably 10,000 years. And the likeliest time is close to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said all along, 6,000 years. It's between 10 and 6. And therefore, certain populations that we used to think of as European. So, for example, it used to be thought that the earliest people in Europe, after Grimaldi man, was the Solutrean culture. It used to be thought that the Solutreans were white. That's not what the evidence is saying now. And so the result then is that the Cheddar man, the first human in Britain that we know of, or what is today Britain, he's turned out to be black. An article and a documentary came out in Sweden where they talk about the very first Swedes, and they are quote unquote dark-skinned, and all the alt-rightists came out in force to try and push back, but they couldn't push back because they don't have the counter evidence. Ireland, I have a news story where they've admitted that Ireland, the very first people there, were the same as Cheddar man. The most recent one, you may have heard of a mummy that was found in Turkey, and it was originally thought to have been light-skinned. And I think the evidence came out within the last 2 months that it was actually dark-skinned. And the result then is that when we are looking for the presence of light-skinned people, you're not going to find anything before 10,000 years. And even in 10,000 years, it's going to be small pockets of populations. So what that means then is that it's quite possible that European culture is shaped by the harshness of Europe. But it wasn't shaped by the Ice Age because they don't go back far enough. And therefore, a lot of populations that we thought of as being non-black in complexion are now turning out to have been black. And if data is coming forward, such as the spread of European appearances is between 10,000 and 6,000 years ago, it also means that a lot of civilizations that we thought came out of the European Ice Age or whatever, a lot of that stuff would have been us. And consequently, we need to rethink and rework the Two Cradle Theorem, because in other words, Diop was being generous when he said 22,000 years. That's not what the scholarship is saying now. And therefore, when it comes to Europeans and their contempt for God, their individualism, their culture of competition and aggression, all the things that Diop talks about, it may be a part of their culture, but it didn't come from the Ice Age. Why? Because they didn't exist.
As a thank you for visiting our website, we are giving you a free copy of our exclusive 100 Black History Facts, which is in fact a taster of our course content. Make sure you leave your email address and we will send it right to you. We hope it inspires you to dig deeper into your history and heritage.
Yeah, but there were descendants of the people who existed in the Ice Age. And you know, it's not so much a matter of complexion. I don't think, because if you look at it from the DNA perspective, you know, and if you look at it from the perspective that we're all of one race, I think ultimately what we're saying, and we get back now to epigenetic science, meaning that there are things that work on the genes, if you will, in a simplified sense. You have a certain set of genes. And even though if you know they set out to map the genome, they haven't really done it because they found a lot of stuff that they don't know what it is, et cetera, and they don't know how it applies. So even science has gone that far. I mean, it's not comprehensive in that sense, because, for example, you know, I think that a butterfly may have almost as many genes as we have. So that is something more than just the number of genes spread out, in a different fashion, chemical fashion. So if we say there's one human species, then we have to say there's one genome that carries the information that makes us human. And then nowadays, of course, we now understand that changes in the environment or changes in your mindset can alter how your genes express themselves. It's an expression of the same genes, because then these things can turn on certain genes and turn off certain genes. And to me, then I believe that this is the situation. Certain genes were turned on or off by the Ice Age, and of course we went over there. As African people, we went over there. Dark-skinned African people, the Grimaldi. And somehow over time, and that may have happened, say, 40,000 years ago. And over time, between that and we used to say 15,000, now you're saying 10,000. Between that, when the first, white person was found in Europe, and I don't know what number is now for the first Chinese person or a Mongolian person, not Mongoloid, was found, in Asia. So the numbers have to be reoriented. But I think the genetic facts, well, not that we know the genetic facts, but we create a genetics theory, that says that we all have the same genes, but when we live in a certain area, in a certain environment over a certain period of time, then our interaction with the environment then turns on certain genes and turns off certain genes. And it doesn't matter our skin complexion. And if you look, let's say you look at the United States of America, and subsequently post-slavery at the present time now, we have Black people who are in the Pentagon, or whatever his name is, the chief of the armed services, a Black man. We've had Black presidents, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Congressional Black Caucus, or if you will, and so on and so forth, expressing, very much the same ideology and manifesting the same behavior as both white counterparts. So they're now in the same environment, are being shaped by the same dynamic forces, and therefore their genes are being modified in the same way, so to speak. So I've not abandoned my two cradle theory. I rest it now on a genetic basis.
No, well said, sir.
Okay. Interesting. But I genuinely believe that, and it has some scientific basis, but of course you can't prove it in that sense. But it makes some degree of sense, and it allows you to be somewhat comfortable in explanations of what have happened in terms of history, and because the alternative is to say, well, some people aren't quite human. I don't want to say who, but some people are quite human, and maybe they have more than 3 or 5% Neanderthal in them, et cetera, et cetera. It's not that intellectually acceptable at this point in time. So I think we have to give everybody a human status and explain differences in some other way.
All I'm calling for is our scholars to look at the Two Cradle Theorem and work on it some more and evolve it. That's what I'm calling for.